Hi, Pastor Matt here for Ask TVC. Last weekend, what we did is we kind of we started to transition away from manhood and into womanhood, leading up to this coming weekend where we'll just define womanhood like we did manhood. And so, got 4 questions that came through that I'll answer this week. And just a note, I'll say this again at the end: we won't have Ask TVC next week. Our entire staff will be at staff retreat, and so we won't have time to film it before we're gone for that. And so, with that said, we've got 4 questions. So the first one is: how should a man set the spiritual climate or tone in his home when there is disagreement in his marriage over a spiritual issues? Okay, so I think this question's a little too complex, and so let me try to explain that. If it's unbelief, you're married to an unbelieving partner, then that's one thing. If it's some sort of secondary issue, that's another. If it's that he or she just doesn't think, or I guess this would have to be coming from an he, if she just doesn't believe you should be having one, and is a, I mean, that's a whole different, so it's hard to answer this question. The way I would just try to lean a little bit is, if you want to make family devotionals about like some niche theology, or you want to make it really what would be outside of what I'll just call the closed hand of theology, things that make us distinctively Christian, then man, I think you need to stop pressing those things and press on the things where there is agreement. Unless the disagreement is over to actually have a devotional, then I think, man, you need to have the devotional on things that are agreed upon. And so whether that be family devotionals or the conversations you're having, and then, man, if things get too tense, too tight in there, I'm just a firm believer in getting help. And so going to see a biblical counselor, sitting down with your pastor, something like that. And so that's how I would encourage you. The second one is it ever inappropriate for unmarried couples to spend too much time praying together, reading the Word? Well, I think this would require you to be extremely honest with yourselves. I don't think that there's anything wrong with those who are dating or courting to be praying with each other and being in the Word with one another. But if that growing intimacy, because that's what you're doing, in that growing spiritual intimacy, you will feel even more of a pull towards physical intimacy. That's natural, God-given, it's a gift. And so if you're finding that in that you're stumbling about, then, man, I would strongly discourage you from doing that outside of a public place or a public gathering, or a gathering even with other friends, maybe some other couples, something like that. And so, yeah, no, I don't think there's anything wrong with praying together, being in the Word with one another. But if it continues to lead you towards stumbling physically, then I would strongly encourage you to do that within the context of community. Okay, another question based off of the sermon this past weekend is: if women were created for men so men wouldn't be alone, then why are some of us still single? Okay, a couple of things. I want to just be really, really clear here. The woman ultimately was created by God, and ultimately for the glory of God, to bear the image of God. And ultimately then, she's created and given to man not because man is lonely per se, but that man needed help. He needed help in his task of really ordering things for human flourishing. And so really God is most glorified in the man and woman, the woman helping the man as he seeks to bring order to chaos. And so I don't know that I would say that she was created because the man was lonely, but rather she was created because it was not good for the man to be alone, and those aren't exactly alike. Now, the second thing I would say on this is that ultimately the Old Testament kind of blessing narrative is marriage and children. The New Testament kind of blessing narrative is yes, marriage is still there, but singleness, as I covered last week, has been redeemed, and so that the mark of blessing now is disciples and disciple making. And we're going to talk more about that at length this coming weekend. But women are single because some of them are called into singleness. Women are single because the man has yet to approach them, or they've yet to find a man worth marrying. And so that's why some women are still single. One, God has called them into singleness, and two, they've yet to find a man who walks in a manner worthy of marrying. And then really this will be the last one then, and it's at some level, I'll just lay out some theories, tell you where, or some theologies lay out where I land, and then we'll call it a day. Can God create anything less than perfect? If so, does this mean he created evil and sin? Okay, now what we know from the Word of God is that God can have no part of evil. And so what we pick up on in other parts of the Bible is that really when Satan, Lucifer, what we know as fallen angels, demons, were created, they were not created evil. In fact, they were created as beautiful, magnificent. In fact, some of the texts in Daniel, other texts in the Bible portray Lucifer to be a magnificent creature upon creation, and then they fell. So ultimately, you wouldn't say that God created sin, but that rather these rebellious angels and Lucifer and what became demons rebelled against a creator God, were cast down from heaven and then deceived Eve and Adam, who fall into the trap of Satan and break the cosmos. And now God is actively redeeming and reflecting the full panorama of his magnificence in both his wrath towards sin and his grace towards sinners. And we're seeing both of those play out in the brokenness of this world even to this day. All right, that's all we have time for today. God bless you guys. We'll see you this coming weekend. We'll be covering out of the same text we were in last week, Genesis chapter 2, 18 through 25, on what is the role of woman. Now, God bless you. We'll see you then.